Assalamu alaikum everyone. This is Rubel. So today we will learn about the request package in Python. So for the API testing using Python, there is a one library or package is called requests. So we will install this request package using pip, and pip is the package manager tool in our environment variable. And then also, since we are using authentication on, right? So we need to install that request auth library. Then we'll use the get HTTP get method to send the request. And after that, we will print this following following item like the customer ID, customer name, customer email. So all these things we already did using Postman, right? When we learned about the manual testing, my previous playlist, right? So same thing we are going to do in the automation. And also, since we haven't looked at the Jira for a while, so let's go to Jira Board. So this is our Jira Board, and let me look at the backlog. You see in the backlog, we have so many stories that we already completed during our manual test case, manual end-to-end manual testing, right? So since we had started automation, so automation also we may have, you will have our user story or task. So this user story for the environment setup. So we already done the environment setup, right? It'll download and install Python, PyCharm. So this environment setup we already done. So what I can do, I can just mark the status as done. So let me close this one and move this one to, should be done status here. I can move it in done. And right now, since the automation we are going to do today, so this is the automation, the user story for the GET request, and the history this will have like the retrieve and verify customer. We will not the verify, but we will print the verify. We have to use the assert, but we will learn in the future. But right now, just instead of verify, I would say print. Okay. So retrieve and print customer ID, name, and email. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Let me pull my Postman. So what I'm going to do, so this is the get method. So exactly this thing, like we will send the get request, and we will provide the customer key, customer secret, and we will print the customer ID, customer maybe first name, last name, and email, right? So these three information we are going to print using Python. So that is what it's about. And also, like I give you the example of the API test case, how it looks like. And also this test case, right? We learn in manual end-to-end manual testing. So I just copy pasted here. Instead of Postman, I am going to use the Python here. Okay. So this is the sample test case. Write the test case for API. So you can write this one in the Excel, TestRail, or Jira, based on your company company requirements. So as a tester, you have flexible what tools you are going to use. And okay, so I give you the example using Jira. Okay, so now let's get started. So let me pull my PyCharm. So let me close everything. In PyCharm, so far what we learned, we know how to clone the project from the Bitbucket, how to create an environment variable. So this is the environment variables, and the environment variable like it is the isolated from any project. So that means this API underscore environment will be associate only this project. So if I have any other project, we will create a separate environment variable, and that will be all the library packages will be stored there. So now, since we are going to do our automation for API, and API, as we know, we need on request library and the authentication for the authentication library. So this library will be under this lib folder, right? So right now, if I expand the lib, you see I don't have any request library listed here, and also I do not have any authentication, right? So I am going to install my install the request library. So before that, let me Google. Let me pull this onto the different window. So let just, like if you are if you don't know anything about the request library, so you can go to the documentation. So what you can do, like the request library Python, right? You can search anything like this. And the one we are interested is this one, request HTTP for humans, right? So this is the documentation that we are going to follow to get our test case done. So this is we will land it to this homepage, request for humans, and they will give you like a lot of example here. Like this is the request.get, right? And authentication user and password, but we need a authentication, right? So we are not interested in this one. So we will scroll down a little bit till we see the authentication. So an authentication, we have a 0 auth, right? So if I, in our documentation, right, we need a authentication 1, right? So we are going to click on the authentication 0 auth 1, and 0 auth 1, what is required? So a common form of authentication for several web API is 0 auth. The request 0 auth library allows request user to easily make 0 auth on authentication request. Okay, so this is the format, or this is the step that we are going to follow. So in order for it to follow, like is a import request. So that means we need this library in our environment variable, and also the request underscore auth lib. So these two things we need to install. So how we are going to install? Okay, so let me minimize this one and pull my Python. And you know what? Let me do it from terminal. Let me minimize this one. Open terminal. And our project is download folder. So cd download. Then we have to go to cd project, right? API test. So now if I say ls, I should see the API environment here. So now, right now is I am not under API environment, right? So I have to activate this API and hyphen environment. So I have to say source, the name of the API. Then I have to go to the bin folder, then activate. So, so in order for to install anything inside this API underscore environment, I have to activate. That means I have to go inside this API or activate this API environment. And after that, whatever tools you're going to install, everything will be here. Okay. So you see this, the activate, source activate is under the bin folder. So now if I go to the bin, you see it's activate here. Okay, so let me enter. So now we are, you see it has been changed, API underscore environment. So now any tools we need to install install install, right? We have to use the pip. The pip is the package manager for Python. So I have to say pip install, and let me go to the documentation here. So the pip install, we need to install this request. So the pip request successfully install request. So now if I go back to PyCharm, if I go to the PyCharm and if I expand the library folder, I should see the request. You see, it's install the request, also additional the required the library associated with the request. So now I need to install the authentication, right? 0auth, which is this one. I can just copy till here, and let me open PyCharm again. I don't have auth here, right? Authentication on here. So I would say pip install request auth library install. It has been successfully installed 0auth library. So now if I refresh, I should see 0auth lib here request. It's a request auth lib and associate library that required to use authentication library. So we done with our installation for the request and 0auth library. And also one thing that if you want to install from the PyCharm, you can click on PyCharm on the top left corner, PyCharm preferences, and you have to go to Python interpreter. And on the Python interpreter, you see, we just install the request, what library, right? It is listed here. What you have to do, just click plus icon, and you can search like request. So is right now is disabled because I already have it, right? It's a request, install package, it will be installed successfully, right? So this is another place that you can go and install the request. I mean, all the package that you need for your automation. Okay, so now let me go back to here, and this is the format that I should use, right? So since this thing, it is written in the terminal format, not the Python. So that's why you see like this, right? So let me show you. If I open another terminal, let me open another terminal. So this is the terminal. So if I just copy paste, right? Import request, import request. Oh, I have to go to Python first. So I have to say Python. So this is the default IDE that you can use through the terminal. So now if I say command V, import request, module name, no module name request. So that means I have to install the request first, right? So let's see. So P install request. Let me say maybe I mistake in INSS. Syntax, invalid syntax. P install. Let me copy this thing. Maybe I spelled wrong. Let's see. All right, so you got the idea, right? I'm not going this route because we are not going to use this one, right? I have to do some troubleshooting, not sure what's going on, but we are not going to use this IDE, right? We are going to use the Python. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to first, let's create a one on Python file. So I can say new Python file, and name of the Python file is retrieve or test. You know what? Let me open the Jira. So let me see the IDE. What is the that in? So we are doing this, all right? So I say test case number 89 or DEM 89, right? So let's post here. So it will be unique. So Python file DE test DEM 89. And what is the name of this? Retrieve and print customer ID. Retrieve customer information. Where did it go? Oh, it didn't save it. Okay. So let me do it again. So I say test underscore and DEM 89. You see the format this is one of the format that we should use while we are create a file for Python file. All right, so so test DEM89 and name. I say retrieve customer info. Customer info. We are not going to use the snake case, like everything is a small letter. Okay, so we have been now. So we have been we create the Python file, and DEM. So this is I just try to put the similar similar task or similar story that exists in the Jira story. So we will easily try to the link between this test case and the Jira. So now let me go back to the documentation. We just copy paste. Okay, import request, just copy paste. Import request. Then I said I'm going to copy paste again this one. I am not getting any error here because we already have this request library and the what. If I didn't have this, I would get the error. Okay, so now let's put the URL. And put the authentication. And this is for send a request. Okay, so you see, I did not write anything for myself. I just did some research and just copy and paste. So that is how the Python, like Python, you just have to do some research and you can use the existing code that people already wrote and you just do some modification. That's what I'm going to do here. So right now in our so now let's delete a lot of things. So we only have our two key, right? One is secret and customer key. So I don't need this one. So I can just remove this and what else? So remove this URL. Yeah, so that's it. So now what I'm going to do is just go to the Postman, copy this URL, paste it here, and your API key here, and so consumer key. So just copy the consumer key. And another is consumer secret. Just remove that. So now we are asking, so this is the request. So this request is this one, right? So this is whole point that we install the request. So in Postman, when you send the request, right? So in in background, Postman did all the call itself and just give the results, right? Since we are going to the automation, we have to tell them like what we are going to send, what should response. So now, so this is the URL we provide, and this is the authentication. This is authentication, and we learned last lecture the variable, right? So this is the variable. So that means the URL we insert in this URL, and this is the authentication. So this authentication whole thing will be stored in this authentication, and this and the request, and we know the get request, and after that we just pass in the this thing in here. So as you see, this call the bracket, you see the open bracket and close bracket after the get. So this whole thing, this bracket is, what is the icon? I mean, what is this for? This is called tuple. So we cannot change or modify anything inside the tuple, right? So last time we learned about the list, dictionary. So this is one of the example of the tuple. So whatever information we provide here, that is going to be unchangeable, like we cannot change, right? So, but we'll see more example of the tuple, but just right now, just send the request to see if your test is run or not. So that means exit code 0, and that means our code is run successfully. So now, in order for to print something here, what do we have to do? Just we have to create another variable, or we can just print something here to see what it will print. We can say that print whole thing is a status code 200, right? Response is 200. So is whole thing, it's print 200. So now what we can do, we can create another variable. I would say response, res. Response is equal to this. So now we have a flexible to print whatever we need. So I say print response dot print JSON. You see, it's print in the line, right? But there is another way I can see print like this. I think it's called print. Let me see. Yeah, so it's called pprint, right? So I right now, so I import the pprint. So the pprint will give you the same response as in Postman. Okay, so now we are successfully print this information. So now in our task, we need to print the customer ID, and we need This is the customer ID, and we need to print customer. Let's print customer last name, customer email. So these three information. So let me go back to the regular print instead of this, so it will be a little easier. So as you learned last time, like this print game the list. So you have to enter in the dictionary. In the dictionary, we will enter the ID name, and then okay, in Postman we have a ID, we have a first name, and we have a last name. So now let's build our print statement, and also we can say print or name, right? I mean ID, customer ID. Customer ID is equal to JSON then this is the list 0. So to say 0. Then we have to print the ID. ID is yeah. So response. Why is not taking? Let me see something. Not sure why it's not. RES. Okay, variable dot JSON. Then I have to provide the list. We already learned, right? So because this is the list, so I have to put the list is 0. Then I have to print the ID. So I'm not sure what was going on the last time. So now I have this. So I say print customer ID. So I can just simply copy and paste at the bottom. Another one. So the programming, write the code is nothing. You have to do like a lot of copy paste and just modify. So here I put the ID. So now let's put email, right? So let's put email here. So ID, customer ID. I say email. And here instead of ID, I would say email. We have to provide the exact name, right? Email. And first name, let's put the first name. If name, first name, copy here, enter here. So now run it. Let's see what is print. So it's print 68, 68, 68. Okay. Why it's enter 68 is because oh, you see customer ID. So you should be customer email. I have to print the customer email. Be customer. Okay. So now if I print, run, Storm email again is email. It should be customer name, customer first name. So now if I want to add some more context, I would say customer ID is like this, and we have to provide this, and also let me add another icon, and same thing here. Customer email. Email is and here you say customer first name. So this is like we print like we can also run print in the same line, but we will learn in the future. But since we are everything learning from the scratch, so we'll continue learn and we'll do a lot of modification, right? So you see, that is how we send the request and print the response. So we will our continuous video will be like modify these test case, create a method, and yeah, a lot of things is coming up. Okay, so I'm going to stop here. I'll see you next time. Thank you.